Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Talos of Tech live on Twitch. And I'll just jump into it. I recently saw this poll from 9 to 5 Mac that I thought was really interesting. I'm kind of surprised I didn't think of this first because there's a lot of anticipation, I think, in the Apple world. People expecting them to do something exciting, people expecting for big changes to come along. And we sometimes get them, we sometimes don't. It's hard to find leaks and rumors that get people really, really excited that actually end up coming true. But the 9 to 5 Mac poll was basically asking people what, when it comes to Apple, are you most excited for when it comes to their next big thing? They included a ton of options, which, in my opinion, distorts the poll a little too much. I think that there's a lot of different polls out there that can kind of ruin your results because it essentially gives too many options. Sometimes people include joke options, or sometimes people include options that are too niche, but you know that there's going to be that one guy or that one gal out there that's just like, I want to vote that one. I don't like any of these. So if you minimize the options in the poll, which I've noticed that with Twitter especially, people are like very, very bothered if they don't answer on Twitter. Like some people say, like, where's the option for none of these? It's like, just don't vote. But then I don't get to see the results. It's like, you gotta pick one. So you have to make up your mind eventually on those minimized polls, which is why I decided to not include every single same option that 9 to 5 Mac has. And I thought that would get some more interesting results. But to give you some perspective, hey, Mike, thank you for the 8 months of Twitch Prime, sack of taters. Appreciate it. And Ringed Planets as Apple Glasses is pretty much the next big thing. I think that's what most of people's voting is going towards. But yeah, the 9 to 5 Mac has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different options. I think it's a little too much, so I narrowed it down to 3 because I think if we're going off of like primary main category, that those are kind of the only ones people have to choose from so far. But first one that's in the lead at 28%. It doesn't say how many people voted though, which I think would be a lot more interesting. Anyway, 28% said VR or AR glasses. 15.84%, this one was actually higher than I expected. 15.84% said Apple Watch / health innovation, which I thought was pretty high considering all the other things listed in this lineup. There's a lot of people interested in the Apple Watch getting some kind of health benefits, some kind of extra health features, which I honestly thought the blood oxygen level sensor was kind of tacked on, kind of unthought through. It's not at a great place in your body to measure blood oxygen. It's not very accurate in the first place, and it's not even that applicable for many, many people to measure on a regular basis. Some people, sure, but the people who do need to measure their blood oxygen on a regular basis should probably not rely on their Apple Watch. They should rely on some more dedicated equipment in the first place. But after that, 15.38% was the full Apple Silicon Mac lineup, which I guess is understandable right now. We're kind of in the middle of it. So we got the M1 chip. We've seen the potential of Apple Silicon, but at the same time, there's so much more to come. We have more iMacs to look forward to. We got way more MacBook Pros to look forward to. Redesigned Mac Pro, bringing Apple Silicon to all these different machines in the lineup that people are going to eventually end up buying. I can understand why people are excited for that. I'm just surprised that's third place, not second. This one really surprised me, though. Fourth place at 13.57% was true full screen iPhone, which I don't even really understand. I think what they mean is like absolutely zero bezel, like there's no notch, and it's like 100% screen to body ratio. It's just the pixels go right to the metal on the edge. Surprisingly high number of people voted for that. 13.5%. That was in fourth place. People are just like, I can't wait for there to be even less bezels than there are today, which in my opinion wouldn't be that big a deal. You'd get over it pretty quickly. 12.67% was Apple Car, which isn't a huge shock to me, I guess, because I figured most people... I think that Apple Car generates a lot of internet traffic and it gets a lot of people excited. But most people probably know and acknowledge that if Apple did make a car, it would be well out of their price range. It would be way too expensive. So that's why I kind of understand. That's why I kind of get why Apple Car wasn't high on the list. Below Apple Car at 9.5% is foldable iPhone, which I thought was pretty shocking, honestly. Like, um, the fact that there's so much talk and there's so much hype a lot of the time about an iPhone being fold, or Samsung is innovating, Apple's not innovating, and we need more folding phones because we want a bigger display that we can fold up, fit in our pocket and whatnot. So foldable iPhone being under 10%, I guess, is understandable. That makes sense. The very bottom one isn't, not the very bottom, but one of them is 4.07% Apple FinTech innovation. I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to with that. I guess it's something else entirely, I suppose. But sorry for the lag here. I'm noticing it too. It's a lot more today for some reason. Can't find its satellite. Let's see. Matt Apple 941, thank you for the 100 bits. Hey Drew, what do you think about the reverse charging MagSafe pack John talked about? Also, can you check messages after stream? I'm sorry, I can try to check messages as much as I can. They're just constantly overflowed. So that makes it pretty difficult. Man, the stream's very unstable today for some reason. I don't know why it's worse. Uploaded everything fine. Okay. Apple Glass. Cool. Hopefully more features than we expect. Folding iPhone neat. No plastic and minimal gap, please. Apple Car. Let me drive that sucker. Yeah, the test drive would be fun. That's for sure. Bit rate's all over the place, but it seems to be steady now. Just give it a sec. Okay. Alexander Ernst says high blood oxygen levels can be an early sign of COVID. It can, but the watch is not super accurate with those measurements, which is why I wouldn't consider it a major feature. I think they got to bypass FDA approval too. Yeah, I know. I know there will be lag when we're streaming with Starlink. I'm just saying it will correct itself. The lag usually doesn't last terribly long. So if it dips down, just hold on for a second. I'll talk through it anyway so you can hear it, even if there's frame dropped. FinTech is financial technology, so probably Apple Card upgrades and stuff. Oh, financial tech. I forgot there's a minimized term for that. FinTech? Yeah, I'm surprised that's even on this list. 4% of people said they're most excited for Apple to make more financial products like Apple Card or bank or something. I guess some people might be into that, but I don't know. Do you honestly expect the Apple Car will have a test drive? I can't think of that many cars that don't have a test drive. I mean, Lucid Air is going to allow test drives for certain people. If you have a reservation, I guess Apple might do the same thing there. They might say, if you reserve an Apple Car for $1,000, you can test drive it. But no, you can test drive a $100,000 Tesla if you want to. So I don't see why Apple would be against. Test drives are good. Test drives are a good thing for business. I mean, there are, of course, a few circumstances where people crash the car, they lose control of it, and that's a problem. But the amount of selling a vehicle you can advertise by letting the actual consumer sit in one and drive it around, that can sell a car better than any commercial, really. That's kind of Tesla's whole mindset is butts in seats, right? Like the more people we can get behind the wheel of a Tesla, drive it around, see how it works, see the tech, see the display for themselves, the more people will be inclined to buy one. So same thing with the Apple Car, I would imagine. If you're not letting people test drive it and it's just a bunch of pictures on a website, it will always be just kind of a put up on a pedestal, highlighted, like, ooh, wow, it's so shiny, it's so pretty, but it would come across as untouchable. You can never see it. That's part of the reason Steve Jobs and Apple was so in favor of having a retail presence and having an Apple store that people could go pick up. They let you hold the iPhone. Same thing with the Apple Watch. Pretty much at any Apple store, they have a whole table dedicated to Apple Watches that you can try different watch bands on. You can put them on. You can see how they look. You can see how they feel and all that. And they do that because they want you to be able to feel and touch the product. I mean, if they don't do test drives, I would at least expect them to put a demo car in the actual store that people can sit in, kind of like the Lucid showrooms that we went to. They didn't let me sit in the showroom model, but I don't know how much of that was because of COVID or how much of that was just because they didn't want peasants, filthy peasants like me getting in the car and making it dirty. Do you still think the iPads are coming out this month? I think so. From most of the leaks and rumors I've been reporting, it still sounds like there's going to be an event of some kind this March. But similar to the last 3 events, Apple doesn't announce them too high in advance. So basically, the last 3 keynotes Apple live streamed, they would announce them about 7 days before they happened. So we've got a few windows if that's the case, if there's still going to be a March event. Like if the event is on the 15th, they could launch it. They could announce it on the 8th, or if the event is on March 22nd, they could announce it on the 15th, or if it's on the 23rd, they could announce it on the 16th. Most people have said that there's stuff coming out this March. We just haven't got a confirmed date yet, but I still think there will be one. If not, I expect at least a site refresh. Just a lot of people kind of crossing reports and rumors together on that one point. Let's see. I would rather pay $2,000 to have an iPhone and iPad rather than a foldable phone that costs over $2,000. Still, I would love to see Apple's take on foldables if this will ever happen. Yeah, Shakati, I think I'm in complete agreement with you on that. I too have, and this comes from someone who did genuinely try and review the Galaxy Z Fold 2. And I know not everybody watched that review, but I do want to just repeat from that review. While I don't recommend you buy that product, I still had a lot of fun using it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting technology. I thought it was state of the art. You know, this is latest generation mobile tech you can get your hands on. The idea of mass producing a display that can fold and being able to have kind of a mini tablet that can fit in your pocket was very interesting. And I love showing it off to people, though. Honestly, even though I kind of bag on foldables, most of the people I showed them to weren't that interested, or they would lose interest in about 30 seconds. You know, I tried to show it to my dad or my mom or Louise, and she would just be like, nice, that's great, and then hand it back. It wasn't like this wow factor that I think companies like to hype up. Like, average consumers will fall in love with this. It's like, I think they kind of look at it and go, oh, that's cool. How much is it? And then they hear how much it is and they go, no, thanks. It's not that cool. So I'm in the same boat of, I personally would much rather have, actually, I'm honestly getting kind of worried I've fallen in love with the iPhone 12 mini so much that I'm not going to want to go back to a max sized iPhone. When the ProMotion version comes out, I'm just going to want to stick with the mini. I'm worried that'll happen, but I think it's a learning curve. I'll eventually get used to it. But I love having a giant iPad that I can detach and do split screen multitasking on. I can use it with a keyboard and trackpad when I need to, but also I've been using it in tablet mode a lot lately. I will just leave this keyboard case on my desk plugged in, so it's kind of like my iPad inductive charger. I love this because it sits on my desk, and then when I'm ready to charge, I just and I don't have to touch a wire. And then when I want to take it to the couch, I can use it. I love having big screen that I can use, and it's very light, very thin. And then when I need something to fit in my pocket, it fits in my pocket really, really well. It's very clean, it's very smooth, but still takes amazing photos and videos. I like this combo Apple has built here. This is a solid, now especially with the squared off edge design and everything. I like how these two devices work together. I personally don't think there's a great way you can mix the two into something that you can have a jack of both trades, and a master of both trades. I guess that's what I meant. You can have a jack of both trades, but not a master of both. I think that you'll have to compromise on the tablet experience and compromise on the smartphone experience in order to make something that could replace both of these. And it would just end up being worse and probably cost more than both of them put together. So yeah, that's why I'm in agree with you on that one. With especially with the cost. If foldables could drastically reduce the price, this is a bit of a hot take. Some people will probably disagree with me on this, but I think if foldables wanted to be a major contender in the smartphone market, they would have to be price equivalent, not just cheaper than getting a tablet and a phone. I think they would have to be close to the same price as getting a normal phone, because I still think there's a lot of compromises involved whenever you design something that has to fold up. You compromise on a lot of durability. You compromise on battery life. You compromise on, the feel of that display being all plasticky and stuff. So because of that, that's why I had a hard time recommending the Z Flip. I said, even if this thing was half the price of what it is now, I still wouldn't recommend you buy it because for a $700 experience, I find it kind of crappy and clunky. The folding thing gets old very fast. It's interesting that you can make pixels do that, but it gets old. So if you were able to make something like the Galaxy Z Fold 2, but $1,000, basically like half the price of what they're charging for it currently, then I could say maybe a lot of people are going to start going for that. But even then, I think there's still going to be people that prefer the rectangle, not the fold. I know I would. I didn't want to stick with the fold forever, but it's interesting for sure. Chewy Wolf says, "Do you miss the telephoto on the 12 mini?" There's been very few circumstances where I have, but there have been a couple. Enough for me to want to switch back a couple times, but fairly rare. I was going on a kind of hike through nature in the Bay Area with Mike here in the chat, and we looked down at the Bay Area and we could see Apple campus. We could see the Apple Park. We could see the big circular solar building and everything. And I was like, whoa, that's where Apple's working on all the next stuff right now as we speak, except they're all probably home. And I wanted to take a picture and I was trying to zoom in and I was like, ooh, this is where telephoto would be kind of handy. But I would say that was about it. Out of all my experience with the 12 mini, there haven't been that many other situations where I'm like, man, I wish I could zoom in further. Digital zoom is honestly not horrible. You can crop in quite a bit because of how detailed the main sensor on this thing is. I would still obviously prefer it if it had a telephoto. I'm not in the camp of like, you don't need a telephoto. I'm just like, the 12 mini came out in November and the next gen iPhones are coming in September. So I was having to pick an iPhone for the next 10 months, not even a full year. And I was like, I'm spending most of my time at home. Sometimes we will spend a week or even more just at home working, and we don't go out. We don't see anything. And with just how I use my phone around the house, I don't need a telephoto that regularly. Maybe post-pandemic when things start opening up or I get vaccinated and all that happens, and we can be a bit more safe. Maybe that's when a telephoto would be more appreciated than it is right now. If they made a 12 mini with telephoto, I would appreciate that. It also, if they made a 12 mini that had 120 hertz, I would also be way more interested in that at this point. Oh yeah, Mike has some info on us. He's letting us know you can fit 1.89 billion squirrels in that large donut. Thank you, Mike. Okay, so TZ Digital donated 1 bit. Thank you. I noticed the lag. Sorry. Oh, I didn't answer Matt Apple's question. Sorry. He asked about the reverse charging MagSafe pack. Yeah, I don't understand. Reverse charging has always been kind of dumb to me. Well, not always. I guess at first I thought it was cool. For a while, I thought it would be interesting to be able to charge your AirPods or charge your Apple Watch off the back of the iPhone. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how little sense it makes, because most of the time we talk about incorporating reverse charging, it involves taking a device that needs to be charged very regularly and using it to charge something that doesn't need to be charged very regularly, which is why I don't care too much about the reverse charging stuff, because all they can think of whenever we talk about like advertising reverse charging is now you can charge your Apple Watch on the go. It's like your Apple Watch battery can last 2 days, sometimes 3 days if you're a mild user, or your AirPods, which I'm kind of in the same boat in. Depending on how much music you listen to, with that charge case, you get 24 hours of listening time. You can last 2 to 3 days, but without charging those at all. I know I could last a week without charging my AirPods at all. So building it into the MagSafe battery pack, I just know from experience with smart battery cases, the battery capacity in those things is usually not that big. It's rarely any bigger than the battery inside the phone itself, which means that the capacity internally that it could help your iPhone charge would not be very much in the first place. And it's also very, very inefficient to try to line it up all with I don't care too much about the energy efficiency. I just mean the speed at which it charges is typically very slow. Um, Apple Watches still don't even support Qi charging, so I don't even know why that's in the discussion. Pretty much the only thing you could charge is another iPhone, which at that point, why not just take the battery pack off and attach it to the other iPhone, or AirPods, which you can charge AirPods with a Qi charger, but it's very, very slow. I do it, but only like overnight and stuff. I only do it when it's going to be sitting there for like hours and hours at a time. The thing about charging AirPods with the back of your phone is it typically involves leaving the phone face down for extended periods of time, which is not a very helpful use case because it means that you can't use your phone, or you're holding it and using your phone, but holding the AirPods on the back like this, and you're just hoping you align it properly. I don't know. It doesn't seem like something Apple would do, in my opinion, which is why I wasn't shocked when the report was like all backpedaling the whole time. It's like they might do this, but they might not do this. I'm not sure. They might prototype it. It's just a beta right now. They might do it. They might not do it. It's like, so basically, you don't know. If it doesn't happen, you can say, well, I said they might not do it. There's no way to disprove the report. If Apple doesn't do it, they could say, well, yeah, I did say they might not do that. So it's one of those things I'm like, you don't sound too confident about this, so I'm not going to buy it if you're not buying it. Anyway. Blade Gwyn says, I'm just stuck on how bad an idea it would be to put 1.89 million squirrels in one place at one time. The carnage. The horror. Apple, why would you do such a thing? I blame Tim Cook for this statistic. Don't see the point of digital zoom. You may as well crop in Photoshop or whatever. Yeah, you can, but some people don't want to necessarily take a picture. They just want to look at something far away, which I've been in that situation as well. You're just trying to look at a sign or something and just zoom in. What does that say? Oh, got it. Or what's going on over there? What's going on in the back? You just zoom in a bit. MagSafe AirPods case. That would be cool. I don't know if it's big enough, though. So here we have our MagSafe puck. Here we have AirPods. Yeah, it wouldn't quite fit. It wouldn't quite fit the full circle. I mean, Mike, you're the engineer, so you should answer this question. But is it possible for us to put not a full magnet ring, because that would be too big, but just magnets in the corners of the AirPods case so that even though it doesn't fit the entire circle of the puck, it could still magnetically attach a little bit and hold on? Probably wouldn't be that strong. There is even just a tiny bit of magnetic pull because of the metal hinge on the back, but is there any type of magnetic connection you can do just with the perimeter? Because the corners kind of poke out enough, but they are already curved upwards. So unfortunately, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a super easy way to make, because the magnet's all in the ring, right? That's how it is on the clear cases, at least. It's just a metal ring. The middle part is just the Qi coil. That part isn't magnetic exactly. As long as it magnetically attached right here, the coils would line up, but the case is too small to magnetically. I don't know. Doesn't sound like it would work. I would love if next gen AirPods case had AirTags tech and features in it. Oh yeah, agreed. Ultra wideband, if you can slap that chip in as many things as possible so that hunting down the device in case you lose it is easier, that would be wonderful. This would literally be solved by giving the iPhone a bigger battery in response to the MagSafe thing. It solves a couple problems, but it doesn't. I mean, battery life is not a objective solved, not solved problem. It's a spectrum. You even phones with huge batteries can have bad battery lives because of the amount of power it consumes or the display. And also, when you put a bigger battery in something, it can make it heavier and thicker. And did I say thickier? You'll have a thickier phone. Just stuffing more battery into a phone creates some problems and solves some others. So, yes, I agree generally that it would be nice if the battery pack they fit in the iPhone was larger. But with its current design, I don't know how possible that is. It's probably slightly possible to increase it a bit, but I imagine not too much. Allow me to find my AirPods case with augmented reality. Yeah, you just look around. That's why glasses would be so cool. You could be like, where's my AirPods? And it's just an arrow, or it gives you a little dot in space that says in here, in this room. Or it says like way far away. Especially if they're moving away from the charging port. Yeah, but Quo was saying they're not doing that this year. We've officially got a report of someone. Keep in mind, Quo was the one who was saying there wouldn't be a port on one of the higher end iPhones this year. That's pretty much where all the portless iPhone rumors stemmed from, was Ming Chi Kuo, because he gets a lot of stuff right, especially with iPhones and Apple launches and stuff. He's not perfect, but he's been very reputable in the past. And now he's saying, beginning of March, Lightning is standard across the entire lineup. So that means iPhone, there won't be a portless iPhone this year, is essentially what he's saying. So that's not an option. If he reiterated that and said, yes, there won't be a Lightning port or a USB-C, it'll just be MagSafe everything. If he did say that, I would be like, okay, well, they're probably going to increase the battery capacity a little bit. But now it sounds like they're not going to do it. Samsung phones are about the same size with bigger batteries, though. No, they're not the same size. They are much larger. The smallest Samsung phone is, for one, it's taller. That's another big misconception, because the smallest Galaxy S20, I believe, has like a 6.1 inch or 6.2 inch display, which is both taller and volume wise larger than the iPhone 12's 6.1 inch display. So they are definitely not about the same size. That's not true. I've used many Galaxy phones in the past. They're, especially this one. I have yet to see any Android phone in recent history as small as this, which is where most of the battery life complaints come from. 12 and 12 Pro, not so much. But I think it's good what Apple is doing, that they're not the type of company to just focus on how do we stuff a larger battery in the phone. We need more companies working on how do we make our phones more power efficient? How do we make our phone draw less power? And it feels like Apple focuses on that a lot, whereas Android companies don't as much. It's just like, is it 4,000 or is it 5,000 milliamp hours? But they don't really think about how much power their chips are actually consuming. B. Walton 37 says, if the iPhone is going portless, how would you connect to Apple CarPlay? With 100 bits. Thank you, B. Walton. Well, there will more than likely be an adapter. Wireless CarPlay is already a thing. And if your car doesn't have wireless CarPlay, I wouldn't be shocked if there was some kind of attachment you can get that plugs into your Lightning port and then turns it into some kind of Bluetooth signal that your phone can hook up with. I'm not saying it will be a seamless, like you won't have to buy any accessories and you'll just walk in the car and it'll start working. I'm saying, similar to the headphone jack, Apple cancels out a bunch of use cases. I mean, there were a ton of people saying, if you remove the headphone jack, I can't use the thing in my car. There were, workarounds of like, well, you can use an adapter. And people are like, I don't want to use an adapter. Then I got to carry that thing around with me, or I got to remember where that thing is all the time. And Apple's just going to be like, yeah, it sucks. Either get a new car or get an adapter. It would not shock me at all to see Apple switching to a new standard like that, canceling out a bunch of use cases. That's unavoidable. When you remove something, you will remove use cases. I'm just saying the CarPlay thing alone is not enough of a reason for them to keep the charge port, because they've already shown that they're willing to do wireless CarPlay on newer vehicles. And I would highly doubt that they would be like, well, we think MagSafe is better. We want bigger battery capacities. We think Lightning standard is too old. We're ready to switch on and move to a portless design. And someone says, but wait, my old car doesn't have wireless CarPlay. And Apple will be like, oh, shoot, never mind. Like, it's not a large enough use case, in my opinion, for them to keep it. So that's why I think they'll just be like, yeah, get an adapter. Deal with it. Cov Notorious, thank you for the tier 1 sub for 5 months. Very generous of you. Alexander Ernst said, would you ever consider the Samsung Galaxy Watch Active? It's a great alternative to the Apple Watch with Tizen OS. It has great integration with Android/iOS and the EKG, great notifications and great health features. My friend has one. I've not been too impressed with it. I used to review more smartwatches, but the viewership on them was never very interesting because everybody kind of has the same conclusion. Yeah, it's pretty good, but the Apple Watch is way better because of how it integrates with the iPhone. I don't really care for round displays, and I just really, really love the digital crown. I love the fact that my watch unlocks as I unlock my phone with Face ID, the software updates being so integrated and everything. The S6 chip is way better. Uh, the app support on Android watches is terrible. So I've reviewed a few. I think I reviewed a Galaxy Gear watch a few years ago, but I never got that much interest in it. Not that many people were interested. Let me look at my old video backlog now. I'm kind of curious. I'm just gonna search watch and see what I get. Oh man, it's been a while. Last page, first videos. Oh yeah, I did a video on WatchOS versus Tizen OS. Where's some other ones? Oh yeah, I reviewed the Huawei watch. I remember wearing that to work a few times. Yeah, none of these got very many views or that many likes in the first place. I reviewed a Huawei watch. I reviewed which one was that? Galaxy Gear 2? Maybe that's what I should be searching. Gear. Try that one. Oh yeah. Gear S2 from 2016. Wow, it's been a long time. So it has been a while, to be fair. I mean, honestly, in my experience of making videos, just buying kind of unpopular or not that talked about accessories and reviewing them have never performed very well, especially as an Apple sheep. It's just like, okay, he prefers the Apple Watch. What's the big discovery? So what I'm trying to say is it's probably a lot less interesting than you would imagine. But I recommend you go look up those old videos. They're still public. They're still up there. Ringed Planet 6 says, I've actually accidentally ordered 3 pizzas on the Domino's watch app. That sounds incredible. Domino's lets you order pizza. There's no Domino's where I am. They let you order pizza from the watch? That's incredible. Now I want Domino's. The Samsung Galaxy Watch Active 2 is the 2020 model, which is way better, has all of that, and it doesn't use Android OS. It uses Tizen. I've used Tizen before. I'm saying I'm not impressed with Tizen compared to WatchOS. Plus Apple Pay. And I use the Apple Card, so it's not like I'm going to have some great realization and ditch my Apple Watch. I already am not that inclined to upgrade my Apple Watch because I feel like there's not enough changes. So let alone switch to a different platform that's not going to be as integrated with my iPhone. YOLO says Galaxy Watch 3 is kind of disappointing. Same processor as Galaxy Watch from 2018. Really? Yeah, that's not too good. That's not fun. 31 Flavors says, rather late on the response here, but yeah, where everyone wanted Apple to make chunkier MacBook Pro or bigger, louder fans to deal with Intel chips, Apple said nope, and that's how we got the M1. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. They focused on power efficiency instead of just putting up with the old standards like Intel's x86 and just putting more fans and thicker laptops so that you can support those dated standards instead. Better to just kind of move on to a new standard. I think they made the right call there because M1 chip is amazing. M1 chip is wonderful. Let's see. Cov Notorious says, switch from Apple to Android. I find myself looking for my charger a lot more often. That's due to the higher refresh rate and resolution, I imagine. Small negative for me. Still prefer Apple because of the ecosystem. Yeah, I think that ultimately comes down to what keeps people with iOS is just because it's not that Apple makes it hard to leave the ecosystem. It's just that I feel like no one else has an ecosystem as simple or as easy to set up and get used to. And until someone is able to create a ecosystem better than Apple, there's not really much, because the whole process of switching over your ecosystem is very cumbersome and frustrating. So even if Samsung or Google somehow matched Apple on every aspect of the entire ecosystem, which isn't going to happen, it's very unlikely. The idea that they could get laptops and desktops and tablets all with just as good hardware, with just as great integrated features and all of that across the board, if they were able to match all of that, it would still be hard for people to switch over because the process of buying all new stuff and having to relearn a bunch of things or understand different passwords, different emails, and that whole conversion process is frustrating to people. So it even if it was just as good, it would be hard to switch over. So they need to find a way to surpass Apple's ecosystem. And right now, in my opinion, they're not even matching it. There are different companies that can match Apple on certain things, but they're never all the same company. It's always like, well, you can get a better display from Samsung, but you can get a different computer from AMD or I was trying to think of a good example, but now I'm kind of like performance wise, Apple's kind of outperforming everybody right now with the M1. With the exception of like you want gaming. If you want something way better at playing games than a Mac, then buy this PC. But that PC and that Samsung phone aren't going to instantly work with each other. You're going to have to use third-party applications or install applications that don't come by default on the PC to get that integration to be on par with what Apple has. And that doesn't even count for things like unlock my Mac with my watch. Like I've been doing it for the past several years. The simple process of unlocking all my devices, I think, would prevent me from switching to another ecosystem. Huge reason I would not want to get a Galaxy Watch or an Android watch of any kind is because when I wake up in the morning, off of MagSafe Duo, expensive as it is, it's great. I take my watch off the charger, I put it on, and then I pick up my phone, and as soon as it registers my face with Face ID, I swipe up, and then my watch is already unlocked. I didn't have to enter a passcode on the watch. And then when I'm ready for work, I walk in my office, slap my hand on the keyboard, iMac unlocks via Apple Watch. Didn't have to enter a password, didn't have to use a biometric. As soon as I unfold my iPad Pro, doesn't fit into this little chain of security as well, but it just automatically looks for my face, it unlocks, swipe up. I can airdrop between these things. I've got shared photo libraries between these things. Like if I take a screenshot on here, it shows up on here. I can text people SMS on the computer. Even if people are texting me from non-iPhones, I can see it on my Mac and I can respond. Just that seamless integration that didn't require any extra setup. I know that there are phone calls and apps and third-party things you can get for a PC that will let you tether your phone to it, but it just takes more work. You have to. It's not by default. You have to think more about it. All this stuff I'm talking about required like no setup, essentially. It didn't require me to download anything. It didn't require me to set anything up. It just kind of works that way, which is what Apple's famous for. What about when the Apple Watch gets turned off for your Mac? It happens to me and it's super annoying. When the Apple Watch gets turned off for your Mac. I don't know what you mean. Turned off for your Mac? Do you mean like when the watch turns off it locks the Mac? I don't think that's what happens. Windows has the Your Phone app. Yeah, it shouldn't be an app. It should just do it. You just sign into Apple ID on your computer and call it a day. I know there are workarounds. Trust me. People have been giving me that pitch for years, but my point is it's not as seamless. Microsoft is working with Samsung, and that's now a feature. You can unlock your PC with your Samsung phone. Yes, but not by default. It's not something you just open the computer and it starts doing that. Amazon used to have an app for a watch, turned out to be too inconvenient. Someone from CNET accidentally ordered an Xbox by saying Xbox with the app open. Holy crap. Who's going to order an Xbox with their voice? What kind of person makes that purchase? Avnub says, I've used a Windows laptop for most of my life, and switching to the MacBook Air was one of the best decisions I ever made. Not in macOS, significantly more intuitive than Windows. Android and Windows are good on their own, but they can never work as well together compared to macOS and iOS. I think I'd agree. Brian Ladia says, what's your opinion on 1, the allegations about Lucid being fraud, 2, the rumors about Lucid partnering with Apple? I haven't seen any legitimate rumors suggesting Apple and Lucid are partnering, but I think the claims that Lucid is fraudulent is a little unfair. I feel like there needs to be a line drawn between there needs to be a line drawn between people who are just posting renders and baseless specs and people that have a factory and people who have showrooms, people who have stores, people who let you see the product and they're actually producing something, but they haven't released it yet, right? Like the Cybertruck exists. They drove it out on stage, people saw it, people looked at it at the Peterson Museum. You know, they can see it and they're like, okay, that's real. And Tesla has a factory that they're working on, and they will eventually produce these. The timelines are off with all kinds of companies. If Ford has been around for how many decades, and they couldn't even get the Mach E out on time. So developing EVs and producing EVs is tricky in itself, especially for a startup, you know, especially for a company that hasn't, you know, delivered a product yet because they don't have much money to go off of yet. So, and it went down to 0. Let me wait for it to come back. So I don't consider Lucid fraud because of how much stuff they're actually doing, that you can see, you can touch. I've seen a Lucid. I've been in a Lucid showroom. I've seen the Lucid vehicle. I've touched it. I've filmed it. I've seen the display, and they have a factory. It's real. It's not a render. It's different from just coming up with a Photoshop file and then asking for reservations, which is what Nikola did. And I think a lot of people think that EV brands have to be either a Tesla, where you're delivering 500,000 vehicles a year, or a Nikola, where because you've delivered nothing, therefore everything you've talked about is conceptual, all of it is speculation. That means you're a fraud. Like, I don't understand how Lucid fits any term of the word fraud. Anything Lucid has done thus far, Tesla has done themselves. Lucid's just earlier in the strategy. And to be fair, I'm not in love with Lucid as a whole. Like, personal preference wise, in my opinion, Lucid is is focusing on a market that doesn't need more focus, in my opinion. I mean, some people may disagree, but they're basically putting a lot of energy and a lot of effort in developing high price luxury EVs with great range and super high quality interior. But in my opinion, we don't need more of those. We already have expensive high end electric vehicles. We know those can exist. If you're going to be a startup, and if you're going to produce more EVs, I'd like to see how you can make them more affordable, not be like, what I'm basically not super happy about is Lucid is potentially going to have the most expensive EV on the market this year. And I don't want the record of most expensive EV to keep going up. I know it probably will inevitably, but I'm not going to be super proud or super excited for the company that's pushing that price higher and higher. It's the same reason Tesla is not devoting all of their time and energy into the Roadster. They've pushed it back several times, which is a shame for people who love the Roadster. And don't get me wrong, I think it'll be cool, and I can't wait to see one, and I can't wait for it to hit the market. But at the same time, I agree with Tesla. It's not their main. That should not be their main focus. That should not be their priority. And Elon's like, we should do the Cybertruck first. I agree. Cybertruck is a lot more practical, will be useful to a lot more people, and it's a whole lot cheaper than the Roadster, so that should take priority. Same with the Tesla Semi. Whereas I feel like Lucid as a brand is kind of going all Roadster right now. They're going all in on such a sliver, such a high-class piece of the market that I'm like, can you at least go after, if you're going to go for a high-priced market because you're a startup, I get that, and you want to make, every EV brand I've ever seen says they want to make cheaper EVs in the future. So I know Lucid is saying that. They're like, oh, well, one day we'll make cheaper cars, but it's like, when you start so high, though, if he's going to take forever to get back down. I mean, it took Tesla years to finally start making cheaper EVs. And knowing that Lucid is going to start that all over again, except they claim they'll do it faster somehow. I don't know. They've pushed back their deadline several times, but Tesla's done that too. So yeah, I think Lucid gets a bad rep. I think people hate on them a little bit too much, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Lucid fanboy. Honestly, the design is not my favorite. I think it's objectively less practical than a Model S. I prefer the Tesla Model S interior. The Lucid interior is honestly not my thing. I don't like the giant big. It feels like the screens were all about the driver in motion, but in my opinion, the display should be a bit more inclusive for everybody in the car, not just the driver, and also it should be fun and easy to use when you're parked or charging or something. And I don't know. It's just a lot of the design choices and a lot of the market they're going for. I'm like, it's not my thing. I think Rivian's way more cool than Lucid. To be fair, I think I'm much more excited about Rivian's vehicles, about the design approach they're taking. I think their vehicles look amazing. I think they're very practical, and the price is higher than the Cybertruck or the Model 3 and Y and stuff. But they're targeting such a different demographic that I think it justifies it, and I don't think it's overpriced per se. Whereas Lucid, I might lean more towards saying it's overpriced for what it is. They're going a bit more for. What I don't like about Lucid is when they say, don't compare us to Tesla, we're not a Tesla competitor, but then they go and make tweets about how they're better than Tesla. It's like, if you're going to do your own thing and just say we're not meant to be competing with Tesla, then stick to that. Don't be like, we're not competing with Tesla and then brag about how much better than Tesla you are than Tesla. I'm like, if you're going to start bringing up Tesla in your comparisons, then we're going to bring up Tesla in our comparisons. And I feel like they're setting themselves up for failure when they do that. When they do things like, we're going to have more range than the long range Model S. It's like, yeah, but Lucid, we all know the Plaid Plus is coming out later this year. That's intentionally, like, they specifically designed that car to beat you. So don't be bringing up Tesla in your range estimates right now. It's not a good idea. Aptera is taking the opposite approach to Lucid. They're starting with the cheaper car market. Yeah, well, Aptera can do that probably because they're going after a much smaller market. Although I don't even think Aptera's market might potentially be bigger than Lucid's, to be honest, just because the number of people buying six-figure sedans is not that high in the first place, let alone $160,000 sedans. So, yeah. Starlink is breaking up my vid a little bit. There will be frames dropped. There's not really a way around it right now, but it is what it is. If you hate it, these streams will be available on YouTube after the fact, but that's what I'm dealing with at the moment. Let's see. Thoughts on Tesla's rep of constantly losing money? Well, they've been profitable for the past 6 quarters, so I'm not sure what you mean by losing money. Do you just mean the stock going down? Because every stock is going down right now. Pretty much everything. Well, some are coming back. This morning everything was down though. But I guess Tesla's a lot higher up than it was this morning too. It's a volatile stock, there's no doubt there. I don't know what you mean though. Let's see. I think HomeKit needs to have compatibility with Xbox so you can turn it on with Siri. I wonder who that's up to. I think it's up to Xbox. I'm not sure if that's up to Apple. Let's see. Only useful for people who don't have fingers to operate a keyboard / touchscreen. Oh, dictation. Yeah, ordering stuff with your voice. I agree. That would be very nice if you could not type. That would be a godsend. I think unlocking PC with watch isn't a big deal because of Windows Hello. Yeah, there's a lot more people with Apple Watches than people who have Windows Hello. It's just a fact. Most PCs do not have Windows Hello. Some do, but most do not. I would say, like, large majority of people with PCs are buying, like, the real cheap ones, like the ones my wife has to use right now. That does not have Windows Hello. Or gaming PCs that they built themselves, like towers and stuff, which they use their own little at-home Asus monitor. They don't have something with Windows Hello built into it. Let's see. They compare their technology with Tesla. They compare their car with Mercedes. Well, either way, if you bring up Tesla in your comparisons, then expect people to ask how you're going to compete with Tesla. I'd be fine with it if they just didn't bring Tesla up at all and just said we're going to focus on making a premium market. But then when they start bragging about how they're better than Tesla, it's like, don't go there. Don't poke the beast. That's not gonna work. Mike says Windows Hello on my Surface hasn't been able to log me in a while, though it is 4 years old and has some minor abuse. I've seen your Surface. It has saying it has minor abuse is a bit of an understatement, Mike. That your keyboard case is freaking falling apart. It's in worse case than my tripod, and that's saying something. I hope the tablet itself is better than the keyboard cover, because that thing looks like a cat went at it full force. But yeah, market Lucid's going for is not a growing one in the first place. High class, high price sedans like that aren't increasing in sales, which is why it's kind of weird that they're starting with that. I somewhat doubt they're going to be able to hit their prices that they're claiming they're going to hit in time. They're like, oh, by the end of this year, we're going to have this trim, and by the end of next year, we're going to have this trim. I somewhat doubt it, but I'm not trying to be unfair with Lucid. I doubt a lot of Tesla's trims too. Like, I don't believe the $40,000 Cybertruck is ever going to be a thing. At least in that configuration. Mike's probably on to something with like the lower tier, the smaller Cybertruck might hit $40,000, but the big one that they unveiled, saying that it's going to start at $39,900, I doubt that. And if it does come out, I doubt it'll be by the end of next year. So I doubt Tesla's timelines too. Same thing. Same with even more so with Lucid, because they haven't delivered a product yet. But I don't think just because a company hasn't delivered a product that means they're fraud. Apple buys Lucid. Yeah, I still think there's a chance of that, honestly, because Apple doesn't want to front the dangerous cash of an EV startup, which there's a lot involved and it's not very profitable. And it's very high class premium, which I think Apple would be a fan of, making it kind of a niche, higher class product. And also, Lucid is probably going to struggle with profitability for a while. That's more than likely why they went public with Churchill Capital when they did, is because they need the money. And when you're first starting up your business and you need to spend a bunch of money with supply chains on parts and equipment, and you need to buy up a bunch of that stuff so that you can build a bunch of cars, but you can't collect the money for those cars yet because you got to build them first. That's when your expenses are extremely high and your income is still zero. So I totally get why they went public when they did. But still, Tesla struggled with profitability for a long time. They weren't really only able to create sustained profitability until last few years. And I think a lot of that is because of their software revenue from full self-driving and autopilot and that kind of thing. And Lucid doesn't seem to be banking on that. They don't really have much of an autonomous driving practice or plan. They're going to have some level 2, level 3 features, but they don't really say like robotaxi's the future, especially with the way they design their car. If their car became level 5 autonomous, it would suddenly be a very boring car to ride around in, because those displays are not going to be optimal for watching movies or playing games or video conferencing while in the call. So what am I saying? While in the car, not call. My goodness. Apple is not high class premium. They are affordable luxury. Oh, forgive me. I forgot there's like a million different ways to say expensive. That's very different. I don't know why you would call it affordable luxury. A lot of what Apple makes is not affordable at all. Every tweet you see, every time there's a Apple ad on Twitter, every single reply to that tweet is always going to be the same thing. I can't afford this. I can't afford this. Apple, can I get a free one? Can you do any better on price? It's like the biggest thing Apple's known for is being expensive. Johnny Ive is a partner with Churchill. Oh, really? That's funny. Love from. They can design the next Lucid vehicle. Although I do agree, Project Gravity is pretty ironic with Nikola accusations and stuff. They call it Project Gravity because that's what powers the car. It just rolls down the hill. Wah, wah. Avnub says, Windows, in my experience, hasn't been good with integrating biometrics. The fingerprint sensor on my older Windows laptop stopped working one update and couldn't get it to work again for 2 years. For 2 years? Until another update came? Seriously? What kind of laptop was that, Avnub? I've never heard of that. Windows Hello is great when it works, but I just know that it's not that many. Not a lot of Windows devices have it. compared to how many Windows PCs there are in the world. I've seen far more that don't have it than those that do. Compared to like Apple Watches are extremely popular. What would be more Nicola-esque for Lucid is if they started taking reservations for Project Gravity. That would be a bit more sketchy. That's when I'd be like, I wouldn't, don't do that. Not necessarily as bad because at least they do have a prototype for Project Gravity. It does exist. Mike's point is makes sense. Affordable luxury versus expensive poverty. That's what I want. Expensive poverty. The truth is, without getting a little too controversial here, as soon as I say that, everyone's like, what's he going to say? We got to cancel Drew. A lot of people, I'm not saying everyone, okay? This is not an oversimplification of all people. I'm just saying there's a large number of people that are in bad financial situations because of their lifestyle they choose. And they think they deserve, for whatever reason, and they may deserve it, that's a different discussion, but they think they deserve and should have more expensive things, and it's those purchases that have led to them being in poverty in the first place. So, expensive poverty, that could be a great title for a book, I think. The whole process of wanting to have such nice things, such expensive things, that's actually what weighs you down. That's actually what makes you poor, is your lifestyle. Only reason I'm thinking about this is because I'm not going to name names. They're not watching. Don't worry. They don't watch these. But there are some people in my life. You guys don't know them. They're not in videos or anything. There are some people in my life that will invite me and Louise to things, but those things are super expensive, and we're trying to be all budget friendly. We're trying to save money best we can. We're eating ramen, trying to look at every, like, is this bottle of peanuts cheaper than this bottle of peanuts? We're trying to be ever so careful. But then when we get invited to something and they're like, we all want to go out to this dinner, except everyone's going to pay for themselves, and we're going to this place where the cheapest thing you can order is $15. We're just like, okay. So that's a situation I found myself in a few times over the years, where I'm just like, you guys, maybe if you weren't dropping so much money on these kind of lifestyle choices, maybe you could put that towards something like, I don't know, retirement account or investments or a property, do something with your money so that you can get out of the situation you're in now. But instead it's all going to TVs and consoles and food. And so I'm like, expensive poverty. That's the term I'm going to have for it now. Lucid mentioned Apple, and then he talked about a big Silicon Valley company partnering with them. Apple doesn't like when other companies talk about them doing deals, so I wouldn't even be shocked if no, it's not bad to treat yourself once in a while, but there's a certain way to abuse it. There's most certainly a way to treat yourself too much. That's a very common problem. You know how many people are in debt, credit card debt these days? That doesn't happen because you treat yourself once in a while. That happens because you thought you deserved a lot more than you've earned. Which, it's, you can say to yourself, I deserve the best, and that's fine. I'm sure many of you do, but still, getting into massive debt over it, not a great idea. Restaurant employee. This is a gold-plated burger. It costs $1,000. Drew, I'll have the water, please. No, at some of these places, they're like, charge money for water. No joke. How do they do that? Well, it is California, I guess. They should probably charge money for water. But anyway. Do you think you will ever hit 1 million subscribers on Tailosive Tech? I've gotten this question before, but my simple answer is no. I think that the tech channel has matured. It has kind of reached its not sure what the term is. Yeah, matured. I think that sums it up best. For one, growth has died down a lot with the tech channel, and I'm not honestly that upset about it because I like where the channel's at, and I'm happy with the content I'm producing, and I'm satisfied with the channel size. There's some days where we lose subscribers entirely, and there's some days where we gain a few. But overall, like compared to 2018 or 2019, channel was like it was growing all over the place. There was never a single day where I saw a drop in subscribers. Whereas now, it, it's never grows that fast if it does grow, and it's usually like I could upload a typically normal video, like it's not even a controversial one, it's not even like a dumb one, it's just like a normal video that you probably could have seen come out 3 years ago, and then suddenly like 40 people unsubscribe. It's like, oh, okay, I guess they didn't like that. But I don't really mind because the subscriber count really doesn't impact anything. It doesn't impact your income, that's all based on watch time. And I have a play button. I guess I could have another one, but it's really just a flex. It's really just bragging rights. And to be honest, I'm not going to name names because I don't want to call people out here. But there are a lot of tech channels I've seen that have had severely less growth in most recent history, just because of how Apple. This kind of how this whole stream started, was with what's the next big thing for Apple? What's the next big revolution in tech? And there's not a bunch relating to Apple right now. We kind of built the whole channel around Apple and this Apple sheep perspective, and everything's kind of becoming redundant, less interesting, less compelling to talk about, less things to get excited for. And I'm noticing huge channels suddenly stop growing, and some of them even drop subscribers, and by a significant margin, in fact. And they're not doing anything differently. It's not like they changed their channel or turned into more clickbaity or did more sponsors. No, they're just doing the same thing they've always done, but they are suddenly getting way less views and way less subscribers. And they're, at a certain point, that everybody who's interested in this stuff is watching, and there's not a huge amount of people discovering it. And I think that's what consumer tech, at least with computers and smartphones and watches and that kind of thing, it's kind of tapped out. And I had this fear for a long time that it would happen. I think it's happening a little bit sooner than I expected, but not that much. I knew it would eventually get to the point where smartphones and computers and iPads, you can only shrink so much bezel, right? You can only make a display so good. There's people bringing it up in today's tech video. I'm like, okay, there's not much in the news right now, so most interesting report I've seen so far is that Apple wants to switch to OLED on iPads and MacBooks next year. So I talk about that, and a lot of the comments are just like, who cares? You know? And I don't blame them. I mean, a Liquid Retina LCD display on my iPad looks great, and I have very little complaints with this device, and it's fantastic, to the point that I might try out the mini LED iPad Pro or the OLED iPad Pro and be like, it doesn't look that different. I don't think it's worth buying. So there's less things to talk about, obviously, and Apple's business direction is going more services, which is obviously not as exciting, and there's less things to talk about, less things to get pumped for. So I think we've kind of reached the max size of what a lot of tech channels are comfortable growing with. Yeah, there are some that are still growing, but either the methods they use I'm not comfortable with using myself, or I mean, MKBHD and Linus Tech Tips are so big that they're not even in the same realm of like mid-range channel of like, if you're north of 10 million subscribers, you're kind of in a completely different class of someone who's in a 100,000, because Marquez and Linus are going to get access to things before other people, so they're going to be able to cover things before other people, and that just kind of snowballs. It's like, why are they so popular? Oh, because they review the latest tech, and they can get the latest tech before everybody else, so that grows their channel. And because their channel's so big, companies give them stuff early, and that grows their channel. So they've kind of reached their own class. It's kind of silly, in my opinion, to compare something like a Tailosive Tech to an MKBHD. But the channels that I watch that probably make the same type of content or share very similar content strategies, I've seen a lot go down. I've seen a lot of growth in the industry. I just know it's not just a Tailosive thing, but it does affect Tailosive greatly. I do think, honestly, though, that Tailosive EV could hit 1 million. EV is my only channel that's still growing, and I feel like the tech channel blew up the most when the smartphone industry was innovating and changing the most noticeably. Um, the the biggest point of growth, I think, in Tailosive Tech history was when I want to say like the iPhone 10 launch, but it was really more than that. It was more like the diversification of OLED and Face ID and the redesigned iPhone. All of that was kind of carrying a lot of the channel for most of 2017 and all of 2018 and part of 2019. Because there was still, even after the iPhone 10 came out, there was a lot of hype and a lot of buildup to find out, okay, how does the iPhone 10 get cheaper? How does the iPhone 10 get bigger? How does it get better with cameras, with battery life? That type of hype was able to carry a lot of the channel's success for a few years. And now for the first time, we're seeing like, okay, iPhone leaks, iPhone rumors aren't really carrying the success of a channel anymore. Very difficult, at least, because there's very little things to talk about. And I like how people get after me whenever I say that. I'm just like, yeah, this year's iPhone doesn't sound that interesting. And people are like, oh, you say that every year. I'm like, no, I was very excited for the iPhone 10. I was very excited for the 10s Max. I was very excited for the iPhone 12. And I was talking about how they would be a big deal and they would sell great. But this one, I'm specifically saying this is going to be the most boring upgrade in a long time. And the views are speaking for that. The people who are still watching them, they're like, actually, I think it will be a big deal. A smaller notch is huge, or 120 hertz is a huge upgrade. It's a huge deal. Tons of people love that. It's like, well, you're here. All the people who don't care are no longer here anymore. That's why the views aren't as high. So that was kind of the hype point for Tailosive Tech, was that transition over to the modern look of smartphones, moving away from the home button and going all in on OLED and thinner bezels like this. I don't think that big hype transition point has happened yet with electric vehicles. I think we're in the beginning. We're in the early stages of it. But over the next 10 years, I think there will be a radical, extreme growth phase for EVs as they start to hit price parity with gas cars, which they kind of already are if you factor in cost of ownership. But if you start even hitting price parity without factoring in cost of ownership, there's going to be a huge revolution in the EV industry about who has the best range, who has the best autonomous driving, who has the best software. Tesla is, of course, the spearhead of that, which is why we mainly focus on Tesla on the EV channel, is because they're doing it better than anybody right now. So, but it's just the beginning, honestly. It's just started, really. I mean, there's so much that can happen in the next 10 years with the price of EVs and the improved battery chemistry, how they're going to ramp batteries, start making $25,000 cars, probably sub $25,000 cars, or things like Aptera really get me excited. The idea of the car being powered by the sun and having such low energy consumption per mile that you can leave it out in the sun and it starts driving around. And it may not be as bright of a burn as the iPhone, but I think it'll be a longer burn because people replace their smartphone every 2 to 4 years most of the time, whereas people don't replace their car as often. But it's still going to be a revolution. It's still going to change our future. Kind of how you can tell when a movie was filmed these days based on the smartphones they're using, or just phones. Like if you're watching a movie, I've been watching a lot of Paul Rudd comedies on Peacock, and depending on what they're using, I've noticed I can tell what year there is, what year they're in. If they're in a movie where they still have a flip phone and they're calling on a flip phone, I'm like, oh, okay, this is like early 2000s or 90s. And then in another movie, Ice Cube pulls out a iPhone 12, and I'm like, okay, so this is around 2012, 2013. Sorry, he pulls out an iPhone 5. That's what I meant. You can just tell by the phone what time period they're in. And I think we could see something similar with cars, which we see all the time for transportation. As these years goes on, you're going to be able to tell what time period someone is in based on the vehicles surrounding them. It'll be a longer transition than the smartphone, but still, I think it'll make a big impact. Aptera is Sunny D incarnate as a car. Yes. Can I call it that? I had a few nicknames for an Aptera if I got one. Sunny D would be a good one. The one I was thinking of was Tripod, just because I like the term pod and tri because it's 3 wheels. Floating Stingray says, why do you have so many channels? I created a bunch of channels because I was annoyed when content creators would make a bunch of different types of videos on one channel, and I would be interested in one type of video they would make, but not another type. So it would prevent me from subscribing. So the way I looked at it as if you want to watch everything I make, it doesn't matter what, then it's very easy. You just look up Tailosive, you go to the featured channels page, and you just subscribe to all of them. Okay, if you subscribe to every one of my channels, you'll always see what I make. Doesn't matter what channel it is. But I think there's plenty of people that don't care about my vlogs or don't care about our comedy skits on Tailosive TV, but they are interested in tech or they are interested in EV, so they subscribe to those channels. If you want to watch everything, you can. You just sub to everything, but pick and choose what you like. That way your subscription feed is not filled with stuff you don't like or have any interest in. And there's not a lot of channels that do that these days, which frustrate me because financially speaking, you could probably make the argument it's better to just have everything on one channel. That way, when your video goes live, it goes live for this many people. But I didn't like it from a viewer's perspective, which is why I didn't want to do it as a creator. So I try to make everything I can based on what would I want to see, which is becoming more and more relevant these days as I'm slowly losing interest in a lot of the YouTube channels I watch. A lot of content creators I've watched for years. I'm getting to the point of like, I don't like it when he does that, or I don't like how he does that. And it's probably just because I'm a picky person. I'm picky about who watches my videos. I'm picky about how my videos are, the timing. Hey, man, how's it going? When are we going to do Completely Irrelevant Season 3? I know. I don't think Max wants to do it anymore, but we should come up with something. Everyone would just be asking where Max is the whole time. It's funny you showed up in the stream though. I think Eddie texted me the other day. Eddie, for those who don't remember, I mean no one remembers except Min. Eddie was like our cameraman for Completely Irrelevant, but I think Max is dead. I haven't heard from him in ages. Needless to say, things didn't end terribly well last time I talked to Max. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But I think YouTube could have categories of videos on a channel, so you could get notifications for only the types of videos you want for a creator. That would be cool, but it's pretty much what I've already done. It's pretty much just make more channels under the same brand. But I've found much more success that way because for a while I used to do Tesla videos and EV videos on the tech channel, and sometimes they would do good, but the annoying part is people would come to watch the video and the video would do really well, but they wouldn't subscribe and they wouldn't stick around because people would all watch a video I would do on the Cybertruck, but then they would subscribe and then get all these videos about iPhone leaks and battery cases and Apple Watches, and they're like, what is this? I didn't want iPhone leaks. I didn't want Apple Watch videos. I wanted to talk more about the Cybertruck. That's why I subscribed. So I discovered it was kind of a test. At first I just wanted to run EV. I didn't announce it when I first created the channel. I uploaded a few videos to EV, I think about a month before I actually told people about it. I just wanted to see if it could get views on its own without any promotion, and it actually did. Which was surprising to me. I was like, okay, I'm starting fresh. I'm not going to tell anyone about it. I'm not going to promote it. I'm just going to start doing EV videos on this EV channel and see if they get views. And people started watching it, and it started to pick up its own following long before tech even mentioned it. And I was like, so there is a different market. And after running it for a while now, I discovered that financially it's a much better idea because if you brand your videos as automotive, the CPMs can be a lot higher. So I just realized that separately, tech channel just attracts techie people, EV channel attracts EV people. They can both grow independently, or if you're interested in both, you can subscribe to both, all the better. So it worked out in the end. I'm very glad I separated the two, which for the longest time I was against because I was like, EVs are tech, that's technology, but eventually I realized that the demographics were so different that it financially actually made more sense to separate them. Anyway, why don't you do mid-rolls on your videos? I don't think it would bother anyone really, and you earn a lot of money. Oh, it would definitely bother a lot of people. We get that complaint whenever Whenever the Taylosive podcast channel, we upload something and we forget to edit the mid rolls, YouTube will automatically put in mid rolls. People hate mid rolls so much. So I hate mid rolls too. I hate ads in general. That's why I have YouTube Premium. But the amount of money I make between not having mid rolls and having mid rolls, it's not that big. It's very small. And I think I get paid enough. I make enough to pay all my bills, pay for food, and invest and put money away and do everything I need to do. So I'm not like in dire need for more money. So that's why I'm not like stuffing ads in my videos. I intentionally went into monetization settings to make sure, absolute sure, that there would not be any mid-rolls on any of my tech or EV videos or vlogs, because YouTube will put those there automatically if you don't touch anything. If I just didn't mess with monetization settings and just uploaded regularly, YouTube would start putting mid-rolls, which I hate that. So I'm like, hey, get rid of those. Get rid of those. We don't need more ads after there's already an ad at the beginning. Anyway, I've been live for a while now. Speaking of EV, I should probably work on EV. So I appreciate all the bits. I appreciate the tier 1 sub and the Twitch Prime sub. Start giving out Apteras. Yeah, that sounds fun. I'll just pay the income taxes on them. But appreciate you all watching, and hope you have an excellent rest of your Friday, if it's Friday where you are. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.